Good morning. It's my joy to speak with you this morning. And I'm going to start out by telling you something you've probably guessed but may not know, and that's I'm a risk taker. I'm a pretty big risk taker. And when I look at some of the things I've accomplished through just flying by the seat of my pants on the wild trapeze of life, I am very grateful to be standing here speaking to you in the capacity that I'm speaking. I've always loved Dan Fogelberg's song, "There's a Place in the World for a Gambler," because I related to that. But around that time, Kenny Rogers had the song, you got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em. And that analogy has stuck in my mind as a spiritual principle. So I want to share with you today some of the things I have learned from experience. And I hope that by sharing these things today, that you begin to know in a deeper way how to zero in to your divine guidance so that you know, regardless of a decision that you make, it's going to be the one that moves you forward. So, let me start by telling about the purchase of a house. I was married at the time. My husband, as Stowe Good has a song that refers to that, is also a Unity minister and one of my dearest friends to this day. But he and I had moved back from Hawaii, where we had discovered Unity and had been living with Unity for about 5 years. We were able to sell our condo after 7 years, 7 months of no real estate. He and I both were in real estate in Hawaii, and sales were good. Things were perking along, and then the Kuwait War happened. Tourism stopped on a dime, and for 7 months, we went without any real income. So we invested $5,000 in fixing up our little condo, making it as chic as possible, and then we had an open house, and a lady from Germany bought it full price cash. Boom. So we knew it was time to move back to the mainland. So we are coming back across the mainland, and we think we could live anywhere. We're prosperous. We're debt-free. We have $17,000. Woohoo! And we thought we were rich, So we end up going back to Nashville, which is my hometown, and we're looking for a house, and we fall in love with this stone Cape Cod that sat on an acre of land right on the bluff of the Cumberland River, which is the river that flows through Nashville. And nothing else could hold a candle to it. It was love at first sight. So I always knew that where there's a will, there's a way, right? And I thought, okay, I've got these Unity principles, denials and affirmations, and we're going to manifest this house, which we did not qualify for. But through a lot of negotiating and finagling, and the fact that the owner happened to be a friend of my then husband, they were both in the music business together at one time. What we ended up doing was paying a little bit of a down payment and assuming his mortgage, which was assumable. And then he held a second mortgage. So we started out owning this house with 2 mortgages and no jobs. I went back into real estate, but let me tell you, at that time, real estate had not come back. And it was a deep recession. And in Nashville, Tennessee, the sales were not particularly clicking along. He went back into the music business, and he found that in 5 years, the music business had changed tremendously. When he was very active and pretty successful in it, it was very casual, kind of mom and pop town. You just walked into a producer's office and kicked your heels back and said, here's a few tunes I've written. When we came back 5 years later, it was very corporate, and it's my attorney will speak to your attorney. So the business and a lot of those younger singers had come along behind him to fill in the gaps where other people had left or had stopped being in the music business. So needless to say, times were hard and times were lean. So what did we do? What were our options? Ah, credit cards. You can get a cash advance on your credit card to pay your mortgage until the big sale comes along, until the big deal is landed, right? So with our faith, we pursued that course of action. And within 18 months, we were in heavy debt, and there was no solution. There was no solution. So those were some pretty lean times. For entertainment, we went to the Dollar Theater, $1 a piece, 99 cents to get in to see a movie. And if you saved your ticket stub, you could go to Arby's and get 2 roast beefs for the price of 1. And sometimes we would skip the movie and just look around the parking lot for the ticket stub so we could go to the movies. So anyway, we ended up filing for bankruptcy, for full bankruptcy. And our debts were discharged, but we were able to keep our house and we were able to keep our car. So shortly after going through that experience, someone knocked on the door and she said, "I have admired this house forever and I finally sold my house in XYZ and I want to buy your house." Well, I was stunned. I was thinking, well, couldn't this happen 90 days earlier? But, so I call up the courts and say, well, I have some money now. I can pay these debts. And I was told, no, that's already passed. Your debts are discharged. The money is yours. So my husband and I sat down and we had a heart-to-heart talk about our future. So here we are in our 40s. What are we going to do for the rest of our lives? And at that time, Mary Mannon Morrissey's book, Building Your Field of Dreams, was popular. And she had something that she kept teaching through that book. And it's do what gives you life. Do what gives you life. So we started asking ourselves, what gives us life? And the answer came back, unity. Now, we had a plan for our life. Plan A was to be very successful in real estate and buy up a bunch of properties and become a real estate mogul. You know, that was plan A, and that's what we were going for. Plan B was ministry, you know, because people used to look at him and say, "You're going to be a Unity minister someday. We can see it." And I'd be standing right there next to him going, "Can you see it in me? Can you see it in me?" You know, can you see it in me? So we decided that we were going to go for it. And so we applied for ministerial school. Now, at the time, you had to show financial solvency, and you still do. But that didn't stop us from applying. And we'll say, we'll just see what happens. So we went through the interviews. We went through the testing. We kept being invited back and invited back. And the next thing we know, we were accepted, both of us at the same time. That door opened. We had a friend in Nashville who was also a musician from Kansas City, and he had a house over by Swope Park that he rented to us for $200 a month, and we gratefully moved in. He got a scholarship for the first year, and I went through the entire program on grants and donations from churches who didn't even know who I was. During that time, I worked in the Silent Unity prayer room, and I also made stained glass free-hanging wings, Unity wings, that were sold through the bookstore. Or you could commission me to do a whole window, since I have that in my backpack also of various careers and things I've done. So I like to say I got through school on a wing and a prayer. And we graduated, and then we entered into our first church, and the rest is history from there. But it took going through that whole experience with the house to realize that when there is a will, there's a way. It's better if it's God's will than my way, you know, having my way. I am reminded of one of my favorite scriptures, and it's Jeremiah 29, verse 11. "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. That sustained me because it reassured me that there is an infinite intelligence and a love so deep and so vast that is moving me in the direction of my highest good. And I can say yes to that, or I can say no. The question is, how do I align with that presence and that power? That's the essence of each of us. How do I align with that so that my life is fruitful in the deepest sense, so that I am of maximum service to this world and to the people and to the life that is so richly expressed in such diverse ways of beauty? How can I align with that? One of the images I also carry in my mind that has become a symbol of my spiritual principles is that poster or that ad of Motorola. And some of you may recall the big, wide turntable with the big speaker and the Dalmatian that's got his ear up to that big megaphone speaker coming off of the turntable. And underneath it says, his master's voice. And I guess that was to advertise the quality of the record and the record player. But that image tells me that if I'm going to follow the guidance of God, if I'm going to recognize my divine guidance, I'd better know the sound of that voice. I have to become familiar with that voice so that I recognize the master voice. And in Scripture, it's referred to often as the still, small voice. From my experience, it's not a voice at all, really. What it is an instant knowing. It's an instant knowing. And when you have that communication from this field of intelligence whose vibration is unconditional love, it has a quality about it that's a whole lot different than just Donna sitting around thinking up stuff. You know, it's a deep knowing. So tuning into what that feels like to have the presence be made known is the first step. That is the first step. And we attune ourselves to it, we sensitize ourselves to it through prayer, through meditation, through contemplation. And if those words scare you, let me just encourage you to just sit quietly by yourself and let your head do its thing. That's all you have to do. Just sit quietly. Maybe ask a question or two and just see if something comes up through you to you. Just start with that contemplative time with yourself. And that will take you deeper and deeper and deeper. And eventually you'll be able to carry this voice with you wherever you go. You will feel it as the presence in your very solar plexus and that is radiating through your heart. And this presence will guide every step of the day if you stay connected to it and attuned to it. Once you develop this relationship with your inner essence, your inner spiritual essence, you will see that it is always with you and you can never be separated from it. And when it gives you a knowing, or what seems to be like the next indicated thing to do, that's when you say yes. That's when you hold the cards you've been dealt, if they're the cards of faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and love. If you've got other cards in your hand, fold them, get them down, get them out of the way. So often we pray for something to come our way, we desire something with all of our heart, and then Spirit gives us an opportunity, plants a seed thought in our heads, and we go, nah, can't be true, not for me. And we come up with all the reasons to negate that. It takes courage to live a spiritual life. It takes courage to walk a spiritual path with conscious intention and devotion. It takes daily practice, not only in your time you may set aside for meditation in the mornings or evenings or whenever, but in your day-to-day interactions to stay connected. So have the courage to say yes to those promptings of Spirit, and have the courage to say no to those things which no longer further, which no longer serve. A vision for your life will emerge. It will emerge when you develop this relationship with Spirit. But rarely have I ever been given the strategic plan with all the SMART goals of how to get where I'm going. It's more just an inner knowing. It's more this inner knowing that this is my destiny. And the steps in between become the great adventure. So I am given opportunities on a daily basis. And if I am present in the moment and connected to Spirit, I can recognize them. And I can ask myself, is this an opportunity which is going to further this vision of greater service, an expression of deeper love, of creating more beauty in my life? Is this opportunity, if I say yes, going to help bring that up and out and be cultivated in me? Or is it something else? I learned a long time ago that with Spirit, all things are permissible, but not all things further. So what is going to further this vision that I hold for my life? So having the courage to say yes to that, and having the courage to say no to it, to those things that don't serve, is absolutely essential. And then the third thing is we have to take action. You know, there's many times I've said, okay, I'm just going to stand right here till the Spirit moves me, because I don't know which direction to go. And I had a friend who was looking for a job forever, and she said, you know what, I'm just going to go sit on the beach, and God, when you know what you want me to do, come get me. And that's what she did. And it was sitting on the beach that her next opportunity came to her. So we truly do live in a magical world if we have eyes to see it and ears to hear. So we have to take action. We have to take that bold step. We have to do something differently in order to get different results. Again, holding on to that connection with Spirit, cultivating that deeper communion all the time, and having the courage to let go of our safety nets, having the courage to know that even if I lose this hand, I will not lose the game. Why? Because there is no me in the final analysis. You know, when you live this way, you begin to see that everyone is a winner. We all have the resources that we need to accomplish the desires of our heart. But the biggest thing to know is that it is not I, but the divine presence within that is accomplishing this through me, that is drawing it to me by virtue of the degree that I walk by faith and not by sight, by virtue of the degree to which my love and devotion to this universal life and this universal love ignites in me a specific way in which I can show up as the divine presence. And that is my purpose in life. And you know what? It's yours as well. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're going through, whatever the desire of your heart is, your primary purpose is to be the vehicle for the expression of the divine. All of the peace, all the love, all of the joy, all of the prosperity, all of that, to express that in great measure. You are the light of the world. I am the light of the world. We step into that knowing and we be that light of the world. And the more that we live by that in the present moment, the more winning and losing is just transcended. And we see that life really is a journey full of twists and turns and unexpected blessings and things you could not possibly predict and control. You know, we live by predict and control. I predict this might happen, I'm going to control it over here. Well, there's a lot of joy in that, I just want you to know. You know, it's like live in your freedom, live in your faith, and enjoy this beautiful gift of life. And let the winning and losing go. Let the winning and losing go. And even if you get divine guidance, and you misinterpret its meaning, which I've done many times, and I wind up over here in a little place I didn't really want to be, let that go, return to center, and have the courage to step back in the game. Have the courage to step back in this experience of conscious living, conscious, spiritually connected living.